Good evening, good Wednesday evening. It's your main man Mega for another good Wednesday evening vintage house episode here on your virtual streaming experience. I'm here with co-host DJ Lori Branch, and our special guest tonight is DJ Duane Powell.
What's up, everybody?
What's happening, world?
Hey, Duane.
The Vintage House Show is normally broadcast on WNUR FM 89.3 FM and WNUR.org. And of course, we're experiencing the at-home edition once again, which has been, it's just been epic. And tonight will not fail as we get into it with a great conversation with Duane Powell. But this show is the premier on-air show and podcast dedicated to illuminating and preserving the lives, music, careers, and history of house music pioneers. We're powered by the Modern Dance Music Research and Archiving Foundation, which is the only repository in the United States dedicated solely to the study, preservation, and the celebration of the genres of house and dance music. Our mission, short and simple, to preserve the memories and the memorabilia that support the sustainability of the culture that we all know and love, house music. Lori Branch.
Yes, sir.
We are
here and present and accounted for.
Yeah.
Fresh off a live set.
Extremely excited to get into it with Duane. Yes. And if you missed it, where can we check out the live set that you just did?
Oh, you can just go to my Facebook page, Lori Branch. You know, if you're not a friend, just friend me. I'm very friendly.
Huh?
You
have room?
I got room. I always save a little bit of room. I never do 5,000. And you know, it's easy in this day and age to delete people because there's some crazy people out there with some comments.
Yeah.
Just not crazy, but mean-spirited, nasty.
Yeah.
I just quietly just take them off of the list so I can make room for more people. So,
well, for a moment, this sounded like a John Legend song, right? Save room for them.
Exactly. What's up, Tyrone? All right, you got a couple folks saying, hey, Tyrone Mix. What's up, Tyrone? Evening. We got Duane.
Hey, Tyrone.
Aisha misses you. And Preston is here. So thank you for joining us. I just want to get right into it. Is that okay? So Duane Powell, legendary. I know I use that term a lot, but I only use it with people who deserve it. So I'll just say that. And I think you deserve that title, not only because you've been doing it for many years, but you have expanded the genre in so many ways that it's so impressive when I just, think about all the work that you've done over the last, you've been in the game since 85, is that right?
Yeah.
Since 1985. So listen, what we want to do and what we always do is just like to unpack your history a little bit and then talk about some of the work that you're into now. And I want to start, you're from Chicago, yes?
Mm-hmm. From the South Side. Mm-hmm.
What about?
Born in Stateway Projects, from Stateway Projects to Inglewood to Roseland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 of Chicago's most notorious neighborhoods.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was in Inglewood and right across the street from Roseland, so I'm guessing we might have been neighbors at some point. Although I was probably moved out by the time you moved in.
I went to the Roseland YMCA on 111.
Me too.
Yeah, wow.
I went to swim classes there every week.
That pool.
Dude.
Famous pool.
Did you get sliders afterwards at the
at the White Castle? Yeah.
That was legendary too. Yeah. So Duane, thank you again for being on the show. We appreciate you so much. We wish we were live in the studio in WNUR 89.3 Evanston, Chicago, but we're not. We're here, and I told Lauren last week I'm almost liking this a little bit better because we get to see people we typically don't see, or sometimes in different states or different states of consciousness. But but anyway, let's hear a little bit about that. You grew up on the South Side, Stateway Gardens, Inglewood, then Roseland.
No, not State. State. I thought you said Argyle. Yeah, Stateway Gardens, right?
Yeah, Argyle is way out there.
Way, 120s.
130.
Which of those neighborhoods were, resonate for you and why?
Well, I mean, Roseland is mostly the foundation. And then I had to throw in Auburn Gresham as well because that was the grandparents' house, so that was always home base. No matter where we moved, my grandparents were Auburn Gresham.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where music for me began, really Auburn Gresham, because all of my uncles were DJs throughout the entire 70s into the early 80s. And they were my first exposure to music and to social culture. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they DJ'd a lot of the lounges and bars and different places all over the city for, like I said, a decade and a half. And then my grandma's home, they had a really big home, and my grandmother was that person that people just loved to be around, and she was that, she was the woman that everybody's welcome, and so her house was always like the ground zero for something. So they used to have a lot of events and a lot of things at my grandmother's house. So I grew up seeing, social culture as early as 3 years old. So
I
Wow.
was going to ask about that tastemaker dimension of Duane Powell, right, and how that came to be. You, since 3 years old, you've been exposed to a variety of cultural experiences and nuances.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And my mom tells the story. I was like, "Mom, you lying," and she sticks by it. That at 3 years old, she bought me a tricycle. And she was like, "You did not ride it. You turned it on its side. You took a 45. You put it on the wheel, and you would just spin it, and you would think that it's gonna make a sound." I'm like, "Mom, you lying?" She was like, "I'm not lying." She was like, "You was attracted to that at that early, as young as 3."
Wow.
And out of the box thinking. Love that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Now, I'd like to hear a little bit more about these uncles of yours because I know you weren't going into the clubs to hear them spin.
No,
So
well,
how,
my grandma did own a lounge.
okay.
My grandma owned the lounge. My dad. Okay, so my mom's mom is the one that had all the events at her house, but then my dad's mom owned the lounge.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And her and my aunt and them lived above the lounge. And there was a door that we could, come down that would take you from the apartments into the lounge. So there was a lot of sneaking, peeking, get your ass back upstairs, kind of stuff.
Curiosity.
Yeah. But there was a few times, of course, you couldn't just be in the lounge. But there's always been other gatherings where they come down and force you as a child to come and dance. Come and dance for this dollar, kind of thing. But music was always, what everything our family did was music and food.
Mm-hmm.
My family was large. My mom has 14 siblings.
Wow.
And so, my grandfather, he had 14 siblings. So the gatherings were always large. So it was always music. It was always food.
Wow.
And my uncles always set up, and then you always see them getting the equipment together, setting up the turntables. It was always that, and I grew up I was the kid they had to make go outside and play because I really wanted, like, every chance I got. If I was at my grandmama's house and when one of my uncles was living there, all I wanted to do was look at their record collection and be around the music.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, but it was just like, okay, you become like this really weird kid though. You need to like socialize with kids.
Mm-hmm. It worked out in your favor though.
Right. Go outside and play.
That was a gift that is still giving today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
I was trying to explain that concept to my daughter who's 11 years old now. And, all the kids these days spend all their time on, they're just doing this. They're going to all have arthritic thumbs by the time they're our age.
Oh, yeah.
But I said, she's like, what did you do? I said, we played music all day. We get a stack of records and, you just sat around and played music. That's what you did.
Yeah.
We entertained.
And then dance. Absolutely.
And I mean,
So,
I read the liner notes like crazy.
Yes.
I
miss liner notes.
Yeah. I
read lost art. It feels like.
We got to bring back liner notes. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I remember some artists that were really trying to, do this campaign where they were trying to try to start some initiatives or whatever to force iTunes and those places
Mm-hmm.
to include liner notes when things come up, because that's how a lot of musicians get other work.
That's
As
a great point.
fans, I mean, that's how I used to find other music, right? If I had this record that I really really enjoyed, if I look and see who produced it or who played on it, and then I'm at the record store and I pick up some random album, I don't know who this new artist is, but I flip it over and like, oh wait a minute, he on there, oh they produced it, they was on so and so's record.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's how I
Right.
would continue to find other things when I get into a certain producer, like, Patrick Adams, or, you know, uh, so
Leroy
many,
Burgess or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
I would from there want to get anything their name was on.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. Duane, uh, so our great friend Lauren, aka I can never pronounce her other name, so I won't try. Kevin, maybe.
I pronounced it wrong too. So, but our super duper producer and founder of the dance music.
That's right. There you go. She said you've been described as a music historian. Talk to us about how this evolved. Different
How do you get titles?
music historian.
I mean,
Yes.
outside of people, because I have some college, but I didn't get a degree or anything. But again, everything about me comes from living, So that I guess that would be that honorary thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It comes from, like I said, as early as 3, being in these cultures and being surrounded by things, and me just absorbing everything that I'm around. So, like I said, my mom's siblings is 14 of them, right? So within the age range of them, some of them went to high school with Minnie Riperton, some of them went to high school with Shaka Khan. The Emotions were very good friends, and when we lived in Inglewood, they all lived in Inglewood.
Yes.
And so the Emotions used to have car parties at our house.
What?
Yeah, and so then like the Staples singers, used to come by our church. Papa Staples was always a guest at our church. I kind of just grew up in this thing, not knowing what it is. You're a kid, you know what I'm saying? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was the Emotions, but for me it was Ain't Juan That Ain't Sheila.
Right.
I didn't know that whole other thing. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so, I always just had this knack for, like, again, reading liner
Mm-hmm.
notes, wanted to know more about music. And then I have I have some sort of I don't know if it's an addictive, I don't know what you call it, where I get
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with
Yeah.
things that I like, right? So like I said, when I found on one artist, when I find a producer or record I love, then I want everything, single thing by them, you know what I'm saying, and so on
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. And that has always kind of been the case. Um, and I guess I just never knew that I was at in the same time that I was doing all this, that I was, taking in a lot of knowledge. I
Yeah.
thought that this is something everybody did.
Yeah.
So,
you know?
so Duane, yes, it sounds like you were a sponge. I wanted to ask if you could put some additional context. You've named a lot of spaces, right, and places that influence you, that served as this inspiration for the culture that we see reflected in who you are today. Could you put a few names to some of these places? The lounge, for instance, that your grandmother owned, it, or the church that you were involved in. A lot of our audience is Chicago.
I went to Antioch Missionary Baptist Church of Roseland.
All right.
And my grandmother's building on 105th, because I went to Corliss High School.
All right.
My grandmother lived on 105th in Corliss, on 2 blocks down from the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And her building, it was at one point in the 70s. She had it as a soul food restaurant.
Nice.
1 minute it was a lounge, and then the last time that she had in there, she had like a convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
Because she owned the whole building, and like I said, lived upstairs. Mom lived upstairs. They all ended up moving out, and she ended up still owning the building but renting it out, and they ended up renting it out to like a storefront church and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of, I guess I don't feel like I answered Lauren's question completely either. So with the music historian part, after a lot of people that know me. Well, I won't say a lot, but quite a bit of people that know me from my my years spent as a employee and then a manager at Dr. Wax Records in Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
And when Dr. Wax closed, went out of business, and I was unemployed, that was also the same time that kind of Facebook had just started popping back in 2010 or so. Well, it started popping about 2008, but 2010 I was unemployed with nothing to do, and time on my hands, and I would just post things up on Facebook. Like I would take a certain like I even still do it now, where if my favorite artists and or the legends or something like that, I would give them shout outs on their birthday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would start posting up links from YouTube to certain songs, and I would in the comments in the header, I would put bits of information just about why this record, why so on and so forth, and not realizing that people really didn't know this information that I was giving.
Mm-hmm.
And people will respond, "Oh wow, I didn't know that. Oh wow, I didn't know that." And I'm like, "You didn't?" I'm thinking everybody knew this, right? And so that became more and more a thing, and then people really, really just started like latching on to the point where it became this thing that people looked forward to,
Yeah.
like whose birthday, and so to the point where again, my manic obsessive self would turn that into an all-day thing, where I then now gave you a history lesson about a certain artist from the beginning of their career to the end on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook.
That's crazy.
You
You know,
know,
this history thing is an interesting topic. We spend a lot of time talking about house music history and musical history and Chicago history. It's been I love it. I love the scholarly nature of it. I also love just how young people are interested in unpacking the past to understand the future and where this
yeah,
thing came from. But you know what else I love about it? I love how it's not really history. Like, I was just playing on my set Terry Hunter's new song, with Melba Moore,
mm-hmm.
and then I was noticing yesterday when I was watching Greenleaf, Mavis Staples is singing the opening intro. That's her voice.
Mm-hmm.
Which I always you probably not. It's really good. Greenleaf on television
Yeah,
anyway.
final
Mavis Staples
season.
she what'd you say? What'd you
I said final season, so you got to catch it
say,
or binge
Mega?
it.
Lauren, you're freezing.
Yeah, just a
Uh-oh.
little bit of that
Maybe
go.
my internet.
Yeah, but to your point, Greenleaf is a great show,
Apologies, I think the internet's acting weird.
and we are. I think where you were going with that is we live in the history that we're experiencing right now, and so it doesn't feel certainly like we're making history at the moment. It feels like we're living life, and
Right.
you clearly have a gift for living life. You have a number of instances in which people can experience, not only that history, but your fervor for music. Can you talk a little bit about some of those places?
So, okay, I will go into like how I came into this in terms of like house. At the time, of course, they wasn't calling it house. My first party, quote unquote, outside of family was in 83. No, 82. 82.
Were you still at Corliss then, or?
No, I was actually in grammar school.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and I was in grammar school, and that was, of course, Mendel High School.
Yes.
The parties that Kirk Townsend was throwing, and
Wow.
my older sister took me, and I was like, wow, okay, you know what I mean. I was always a dancer, and so I just joined mine in, and my sister would take me there, but then I wouldn't see her no more.
She got lost her little brother.
Right, right, you know. But then that's where I heard a lot of DJs outside of, like I said, the family thing and all of that. That's where I first began to hear DJs. And some of the earliest DJs that I, fell in love with, were all there. But then my sister, I never understood, like, So as a kid, I'm going to Mendel thinking I didn't partied my butt off, and it's over at midnight, right?
Right.
But she's leaving me going to other parties. And I'm not understanding, like, okay, we just got through like having a great time. Like, where is she going? You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't until 85, was 85, that I went to the Music Box.
Mm-hmm. Which
And
one?
I was like,
Which,
oh,
Lower Wacker?
Lower Wacker, yes. I think, of course, I was too young to go to Indiana.
Okay.
But I was too young to go to Lower
To
Wacker.
Lower Wacker.
But there was certain things happening in Lower Wacker with there was a certain element that was attracting younger guys. I would leave it there.
Mhm.
At Lower Wacker, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is a whole nother animal. I had never ever experienced that kind of darkness, and just.
What do you mean darkness?
I mean, it was dark.
Oh.
There was no windows. It wasn't like this social thing, and people are losing their minds, and of course there was all kind of other extra activities going on. Ron Hardy is playing like he's someone who's off their meds. Because I had heard him before, but Ron played differently when he came to play at places like Mendel.
Yeah.
I didn't find out till later that when he played at Mendel, he didn't even bring his own records. He played what they had there.
Really?
Yeah. He played what they had there. He didn't even come with his own records.
Interesting.
So, yeah, to catch that element is when I was introduced to the underground.
Wow. That's a powerful lead up to describing the underground experience.
Yeah, because that's another animal. That's another.
Talk about the underground, like for folks who don't know what that is. Can you describe it?
Basically, Mendel would be my first experience. That's when they would call us preppy, and I was in like dance crews. I was in the dance crew called Passion, and doing dance battles and stuff like that. I remember '83 us battling each other on the street, kind of thing. That was 2,000 to 3,000 kids and teenagers.
Yep.
There. And to go to this places, first of all, I had never been in a setting, even though Lorraine's for me was another eye opener, but I had never even been in a room where there was even the presence of any gay people, right? And there was that element because there was Jello on the door. That was that thing. Again, it's dark, it's late.
Coming out
of the door, and it's sunlight, and you're like, had no clue that amount of time was going by.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Me being concerned about it because my mom gonna be like, where the hell? You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it was, my mom wasn't very strict.
Okay.
And I think it had to do with because I was raised in social culture. She knew I would go out and act like I had some sense.
Right.
So anybody would be concerned about their child being out late, but she wasn't so worried that I would be caught up in the middle of some mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The only time that she got strict is when years later, when my little sister back behind me decided she wanted to start coming to the parties.
Mm.
And then that's when the rules really, really kicked in. But yeah, that was a different thing because that energy, I mean, first of all, to see the way this audience not only danced to the music, but also seemed to be a congregation for the DJ. And the DJ was like a minister. To hear them hollering, all right, Ronnie, Ronnie, and hollering and screaming and, the jacking and just all that was just like, what is going, this is like the den of iniquity here. What's happening?
Now, why would you say that?
It was, but because it was just wild. Like for me
No,
as a young,
some people call it iniquity, other people call it church.
yeah,
It's somewhere in
yeah,
between the two of those.
it's some kind of crazy. I don't know what's going on, but we would, you weren't supposed to believe that you're supposed to get that kind of feeling in those kind of places.
Hmm.
I don't realize that something spiritual is happening.
Okay.
Until at the end of times where I found myself in the midst of the room hollering and screaming. The first time I remember crying at a party because the music
Hmm.
moved me to
Wow.
that point.
You you just starkly contrasted what you were experiencing at the parties where high school kids and the preppies were versus
Yeah,
your
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, because the preppy parties, we were definitely about our cruise and stuff like that. And of course, a lot of the music, because Kirk had a variety of DJs. That's the one thing I do love about the Mendo experiences is that you did get to experience a variety of DJs, and you got to experience a variety of dance music. Because you would have Hot Mix 5 come through there. You had, that's where Ferris Thomas, was loved. That's where, I don't know if people remember this. There was a DJ by the name of, but it wasn't Boo Williams, but his name was Boo. He was
Hmm.
the resident. Him and Celeste Alexander would be the residents in the on the second level.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Um, and so you would get that Hot Mix 5 radio side, that Farley, that stuff. But then Frankie did come play there. But then, Ron Hardy came play there. And you know what I'm saying? And you got the disco, you got this. So you got that well rounded,
Hmm.
whatever. Because like what I think now, like people really frown down upon the radio side of the house, but it had its presence.
It was
You know?
important. I
and
think that
Yeah.
helped spread it.
yeah,
Yeah. You know, so I definitely appreciated that. But then to hear Ron just play like a wow, man, because everybody I heard, like, people always come up with this conversation between Ron versus Frankie and the differences and so on and so forth and yada yada. Yada.
Hmm.
A lot of the DJs, especially the ones that were influenced by Frankie, would definitely play with him. Frankie, to me was sophistication,
Hmm.
and Ron was not sophisticated.
Not sophistication. That's
you
a good
know,
way to describe it.
he
He
cuddled
was he
outside the
was
line.
raw. Frankie was curated. Ron was raw. You know.
Yeah, but I had to really Frankie was such a storyteller though. He was very calculated in his storytelling. And that was some of the things I started to pick up. And of course, being young, I gravitated towards Ron because
Hmm.
it was all that high energy.
right.
You know what I'm saying? I had to get into the sophistication more. But what I liked is because what Frankie reminded me, because my uncles were the ones that introduced me to a lot of Prelude records,
Hmm.
kind of garage sound sort of deal. So it wasn't foreign to me when people thought like playing music at 112 beats a minute and stuff like that was kind of they ready for this high energy. I
Hmm.
already had appreciation for it through my uncles.
Right. Right.
Then my uncles also played jazz, and stuff like that. So I had already had an affinity. So
Hmm.
when I went to parties that I heard, these things, it wasn't foreign to me.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. And your style now is uniquely your own. Some of our commenters have indicated you really can't compare, but I think it's a
You
little,
can't, but people always have this
yeah,
need to. You cannot compare,
it's
really. You
human
can't.
nature. Yeah,
They both,
Yes, that's
they,
right.
and I get it because they both were so legendary in who they were that
yes.
people always have to put this whole who's whatever, whatever. I can't stand it because
Hmm.
there's so many architects of this thing. You know what I'm
Let me
saying?
ask you this, Duane. Do you think that people make the comparison because they were both black DJs? Like, I don't know a lot about early white dance disco
Well, I
music
was just saying
DJs,
this
but do they
period.
do the
Even
same thing?
I was just saying this just today. Period. We have this need in our culture to
Hmm.
always do this whole versus uh,
Right.
thing, this whole kind of pitting one against the other kind of thing.
Hmm.
And sometimes it starts out happening in fun, like what they're doing right now on Instagram with the whole versus serious they do.
Mm-hmm.
But then we take it to these other levels where it becomes these serious things, and then it forces us to not stop appreciating things because now one has to be better, one has to be whatever. It's like no, all of this is significant. Why keep comparing? You know what I'm saying? They are significant.
This is
Significant. This is why we here because they all were significant. This is why we here.
it's an interesting point because hip hop has done and built a tremendous level of following and engagement around that whole competitive culture.
Yeah, yeah. Hip hop changed the game a lot. Period. On Black social culture. Period. Just
No doubt.
The rules of masculinity and even the way we engage is like hip hop changed a lot of things. Period. So yeah. But yeah, Anyway, I forget where I was going. I kind of felt like babbling.
Oh, you were talking about your trajectory, and we got into comparing DJs and sort of why do we need to compare DJs? I don't know that that's done outside of our community. I didn't spend a lot of time
No, you don't see
studying other
anybody
DJs.
arguing about Van Halen versus ACD or whoever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do have their dedicated fans, but you don't see this arguing amongst
Yeah,
these other coaches about that. They celebrate their people.
I have to say, as a woman in this field, that happened a lot because there were so few women. There was always this comparison. There was always like, well, do you like? And it's like DJs are all so different, And
Yeah.
it's like, it's like what appeals to somebody is not going to appeal to someone else, and that's why people have followings because people like their style,
Mm-hmm.
And so to say somebody is better or worse, I never
Well,
quite understood that.
and also for me, what it also does too, I don't like it keeps people from embracing newer people,
Right.
and it keep people from. Do we always want to keep this hierarchy or this court, this the king and queen and so on and so forth, and we always make other DJs who's coming up in the game feel like they don't measure up,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't seem to be for as long as it didn't seem like to be for me. It didn't seem like even my generation because I was blessed to be able to go to the music box. A lot of my generation was not able to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, And so for them that they had to go, they had to go from Mendel to the Bismarck and places that of that nature. There was a lot of people of the generation above me from the underground who didn't really want to welcome my generation, the next generation, into this culture.
Why is that?
I don't know. You tell me.
So
Well, I wasn't one of them.
yeah, I mean, an interesting point here is on 2019, there was a Chicago Readers Best of Chicago poll taken, and the staff picked you as the best house music DJ of 2019.
Yeah, 2019 was a very good and crazy year for me because I was like, wait, what?
You were surprised by that.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I didn't know I was on their
Because we're
radar
talking
like
about
that.
comparing.
I didn't know I was on their radar like that. Um, I hadn't done any of like, and when you usually see people on these lists, you always see these people. I hadn't been booked for a lot of the festivals.
Uh-huh.
I just hadn't been there. I mean, I had been working my butt off, but I just didn't know I was on their radar like that. You know, when I got on the cover got on the cover of the Reader, it was by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I got on the cover of the Reader not because I was a DJ, but because of my fashion.
Okay.
It was only supposed to have been a short clip in like the fashion section in the back or something. And because that was the week of the 40th anniversary of the Jazz Fest,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm like, this is the 40th anniversary of the Jazz Fest. Ramsey Lewis is performing his final performances before retiring. He
Mm-hmm.
clearly should be on the cover.
Right.
But it's my understanding that the person who was supposed to write that article for the cover missed their deadline.
Okay.
and my little measly article, which really wasn't about nothing but my fashion, made the cover. So it was just kind of like, it was kind of weird. Like,
Yeah.
this don't make any sense. So I didn't know I was on their radar as a DJ like that, to the point of being called that. You know?
Yeah, well, I think an amazing compliment, and you just should embrace that.
Yeah.
People who make newspapers get to poll people, and they get to put what they want in there, and that is a testament for you. I think Simone Celeste just made a comment. The grind was strong. I think the grind,
Yep.
Celeste, has a lot to do with it. When you
Yeah.
are out there and
Because I mean,
people
I'll admit,
notice you.
because I had some people who started. I did hear the murmurs of people that was starting to kind of feel some kind of way about every time they looked up my name being on the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And to which I was not going to apologize. I was not going to apologize for working. You
Right.
know what I mean? I was not going to apologize because,
Right.
again, I decided that this is what I wanted to do.
Right.
I do this for a living. I don't do anything else. I do music for a living. This is what I
Right.
do for a living.
Okay.
And if I'm going to do for a living, this is what I have to do. You know what I mean? Like,
As
seriously,
much as possible.
as much as possible. And I love it.
Yeah.
And not just to love it from the standpoint of just DJing. I love to be able to work in music culture
Yeah.
and to be able to talk about the legacies, and I also love bridging the gaps and bridging and
Mm-hmm.
building bridges,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, for new people and whatever. And I had to really understand myself. I really had to start to look at myself as a brand more than just being a DJ. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when things really started changing, when you start working towards branding yourself.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think that's an important point because we've had, this show, we have a lot of different types of folks on here. And one thing that we do talk about is people who, sort of to be a DJ, there's a continuum of ways that you professionalize that. So,
Mm-hmm.
or, some people, it is something they do occasionally as a hobby, kind of like knitting, and they got a little controller at home and they do what they do. And some folks, it's kind of an artistic outlet. And then some folks, it's a part-time job. And for some folks, it's a full-time job. And for some folks, it's a career, it's a profession, it's a lifelong passion. And I don't take away any part of that. However you access it, it's beautiful and it's music. But I do think that your point is important, that if this is your grind, if this is your gig, if this is what you have chosen as a life profession, that's a sacrifice because it's not easy.
At all.
It is not. So talk about being a professional full-time DJ.
First of all, it was a difficult transition because I had to go from, the realities of going from a gig that, someone book you and they only want to pay you $125, and that's
Mm-hmm.
in cash from the bar, and you got to wait to the end of the night because they got to set up the money at the bar, to
Mm-hmm.
going into the field where I had to fill out the W-9. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And set up all of that, and the fact that you have a lot of people. I just had a situation recently with someone that I was trying to bring on board on something, because I have gotten into this art world. And I've gotten into where these these institutions are booking me for things.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to bring someone into it who ended up not doing it because he didn't want to do the whole fill out the W-9 like thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing, like, because no one I never thought about this as a business,
Right.
so going from just DJing a party to conducting business was a whole nother animal.
That's a profound statement.
And I had to really started to really think about things business wise.
Yeah.
Because I started to have to work. I had started to have to be at the table at these different organizations, and I had to present myself as a business, as a brand. You know what I'm saying? Which is a whole nother animal. And I'm like, yeah, you can love the music all day long, and you can play the music better than anybody. But Chicago, first of all, I've always said we have more DJs than we have trees.
You think so?
You
think so?
We have a lot of Chicago is a hotbed for DJs. I mean, we were such a DJ town when the nightlife shifted. Not so much, yeah. When the nightlife shifted, when all the record labels, kind of closed in Chicago and moved about to LA and to New York, was the same. Chicago musically was DJ culture.
Mm-hmm.
Another
You
great.
know, and so we have bred a lot of DJs and still a lot of DJs, and there's a lot of people clamoring to get to certain spots. I never thought I was ever clamoring to get anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just realized, and it took a friend to pull me to the side too, even about my Facebook posting when I was posting up those, to information when I'm spending the whole damn day giving you the history of an artist. She was like, "You're giving away a lot of information for free on Facebook."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge sharing.
You know what I'm saying?
And what's important about your earlier point about the business sort of seeping in, you clearly, I'm wondering if you agree with this, approach this, purely from an art form initially, right?
Yeah.
For an artist.
Yeah, and I was blessed to have, I'm blessed to have organizations that view what I do as art
Mm-hmm.
and allow me
Rebuild
to express,
Foundation,
huh?
Rebuild Foundation being one
Rebell
of those.
Foundation, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Arts and Public Life. So many of these organizations, they view what I do as art and allow me
Yeah.
to be able to express myself in this manner.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few times that I've accepted a gig where I had to play some music that I don't care for. You know what I'm saying? And because what I've been blessed to be able to get in those circles, but then that came from years of building relationships too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've known Theaster for 25 years. Um, again, like I said before, I was a DJ on the scene. I was doing street promotion. I was the one that,
Mm-hmm.
that Lewis and his brothers used to come and grab me and my crew to put up Diamond Coast flyers and posters everywhere.
Little Lewis.
Yeah, yeah, and his brother
The
Charles,
Little Lewis.
Steve, yeah. We were the crew that put up his flyers and posters everywhere and stuff like that. And so I've been building relationships with people forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always my thing. I never really desired to. I was a dancer. I was just wanted to dance to the music, but I always had music curated in my head. And so when there's times in Jamie 326, there's a lot of time. That's my brother. And back in the day, because I always collected music, because again, my uncles all were DJs, so I collected music as them. And then when they kind of fell by the wayside, I kind of grabbed their collection.
Mm-hmm.
And so people always want to come to me for music. There was a lot of DJs that I would actually supplying music for,
Mm-hmm.
or they were playing out of my crates. Because I was a music collector, I wasn't a DJ. And then there was times where there's certain mixes, there were certain songs that I wanted, like I want a mixtape, that I would curate a playlist, but I hadn't learned the technical side. And so I would bring these records over to Jamie 326 house and have him play what I curated.
Wow.
So the whole mix is the songs I want at the transitions I want, but him mixing it. Right?
When did you make that leap?
I made that leap oh God, I can't even say that because it's taking different forms. In the 90s, Ron Trent and Anthony Nicholson took over the old Igloo space on Broadway and turned it into Urban Sound Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friends at the time had threw a day party in there. It was a Brazilian music themed day party.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the day I actually officially met Anthony Nicholson. And at that time, I was heavily into the acid jazz scene in the UK and Straight No Chase and all that. And so we were playing that more Brazilian thing, more lounge, more things of that nature. And Anthony had came and he was loving it, what I was doing. And they wanted me to be the resident DJ in the lounge room. And so that's what I did. And that was in 96, I think. But then again, that was me kind of creating a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted my room to be like the lounge room where I played the acid jazz and I played that kind of stuff, and then their room to be like the dance room.
Nice.
So
So you got a comment about Dr. Wax here, that helped build your path.
Oh, Dr. Wax
That's
changed
from
a
Celeste.
lot for me. Dr. Wax changed a lot for me because Dr. Wax is where. So right after I was doing doing around Trent's thing, I was also playing every now and then at the Elbow Room and places like that.
Yeah.
And then through that I ended up getting a job at Cargo Record Distribution. And I was the dance music buyer, and I was the import buyer in the dance department. I worked with Wayne. God, what is Wayne's last name? You know Gary Wallace.
Yeah.
Bell.
What is Wayne's last name?
Wayne Bell.
Wayne Bell. Yes.
Yes.
So me and Wayne Bell were in the same office.
Okay.
And this when he was getting his record label off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the import buyer, and Wayne's desk was right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, and then that business actually went out of business. And went out of business. So do you remember Charles that used to work at Imports?
Vaguely.
Charles Williams.
Yeah.
So Charles that worked at Imports is who got me the job at Cargo because he was leaving and I was his replacement. And it was crazy because I couldn't stand Charles before then.
Well, it helps when they can help you get a job, right?
I thought he was an asshole. I thought he was just a mean asshole. I would see him in the stores and just, and at that point he also worked at Dr. Wax. He was quitting Cargo and was just going to be at Dr. Wax full time. And so he got me a job there. And then Cargo, I was there for a year and then they went out of business. They went out of business and then here come Charles again.
Mm-hmm.
He got me a job at Dr. Wax because Harry Abrams was moving to Vegas.
Okay.
Dr. Wax changed me in a lot of ways because where I was the music buyer at a distribution, it was my job to get the music from overseas to America to get into the stores. My job at Dr. Wax was to get the music from the shelves into your hand to take it home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And Dr. Wax wasn't a store that just sat there and sold top 40.
Right.
We were too arrogant for that. Again,
true
the reason why I thought Charles was such an asshole because he was a music snob.
Yeah, he was a purist.
He was a purist, and he will be quickly like, "Oh, that's got a lot," And so it was there that I really, really started being able to turn people on to different kinds of music. And at that point,
mm-hmm.
This is the 90s. The music had changed. You know what I'm saying? And everything. And I was so engulfed in all the stuff that was going on overseas. And then I was so engulfed with all this stuff that was coming up on the new underground scene, the underground soul scene. People had no idea that this genre of neo soul, there was all this other things that were happening outside of the music, outside of the mainstream. They thought it was only Erykah Badu and a couple of other people. And then, I started exposing more and more and more of these other artists. Lettucey. I was the promoter that gave Lettucey her first gig in Chicago.
Wow.
Beautiful Lettucey. Yeah.
Things of that nature. So
did you travel a lot in discovering these artists?
Yes. It wasn't until Dr. Wax that I started traveling.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, one of my dearest friends, had moved to Atlanta in the later 90s. And I told him that when he moved, when he got settled, I was going to come and visit. And I started coming down there. There was an event that used to take place seasonally there called the Funk Jazz Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
Where they would, and that was a whole nother animal. There's a documentary about the Jazz Funk Cafe. Jazz Funk Cafe was ground zero for a lot of what became like the neo soul movement around the world. So all of those people that I named all played gig there. But the Funk Jazz Cafe was like this whole big cultural thing. So kind of what Afro Punk is kind of doing. This is kind of what it was in the 90s.
Certainly.
So imagine though, I found out about this, and this is pre-internet. I would go down there, and they would have, because they would have all these different rooms. There's this big place called the Tabernacle,
mm-hmm.
and the main room was like the House of Blue. So it's like the main room, but then you have all these other rooms, and each room had a different They had live jazz in this room. They had spoken word in this room. They had dance in this room. They had this in this room. They had vendors downstairs, and they had the main stage. And it was just this black, this African culture. Everything, music, art was just explosion. And from there, I introduced. In fact, that's where I met Bilal. That's where I met Yazara. They were there doing background for. That's when Yazara had just come out of music school. She had just gotten the gig with Erykah Badu. Bilal had just gotten the gig with Common, and they were both just 19, young and green, didn't know where to be, nothing to do, And I would go, so I would travel religiously and find these new artists and get their information, get their CDs, and get their music, and bring it back to Chicago.
Is that how you know John Joyner as well? Of
oh yeah, so John Joyner and my baby sister are classmates.
Okay.
And he was managing a group called Innosphere, and he came. Someone told him he should come into Dr. Wax, and we met that way. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Funny story.
You're getting a lot of love. Sorry, Kevin. Just getting a lot of love from people who are saying you help them with
building their collection.
Yeah. So getting a lot of love.
I miss it too, because and then like right now, there's so much good music out right now.
Man,
I wish I had a store. Man, I wish I had a store.
Do you want to? It sounds like it's in your blood to have a business.
On Vintage House.
Huh?
We make wishes come true on the Vintage House.
That's right.
There's so much good music out that people are just not getting, and I'm the kind of person that I like for people to take the music home, and that's what how my DJ style is. I like to play music that people want to be like, "Ooh, what's that?"
Yeah, me too.
Feel good. I don't want to be able to. I don't want to be in a situation where the music is only the backdrop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know that feeling.
I hate going to jazz clubs when people are out there just because it's jazz. They're not really engaged. It's just the backdrop, and I'm having the girls' night out or the after hours, after office. Like, I want the music to be the focal point. You know what I'm saying? Because I know what it does when it's something you get into. When look at a DJ when they actually are playing their jam.
That they're into it.
Right.
They're into it. We had things. I played a gig Sunday with Ryan Carroll, and I played a song that Celeste, the DJ, loves, right? And she was so moved that I had to step back and let her get on the EQ and let her do her thing because it was her jam. But you gotta love that because you could tell she's feeling. You know what I'm saying? I like DJs that are in their zone like that. They really love the music they're playing and play it because they love it and not because they're trying to impress somebody.
Yeah. I think it's a balance. I will have to say that, I have definitely had to play parties where I played songs that I did not love. And honestly, Craig Cannon taught me that lesson. Now, very rarely do I do that now. But when I was working, when that was my job, when I was relying on music.
Yeah, we've all had them. I've had to do some corporate parties.
Yeah.
The thing about going into when I did a couple gigs for the International Film Fest, the Black.
Yes.
You guaranteed them people wanted to hear Adele. They wanted to hear.
You had to play stuff you didn't like.
When I had a couple of hotel gigs, and and I had a hotel gig that initially told you to be you and be different. But the reality is, their guest roster, their people who stayed in the hotel, was tourists coming from all of these small towns that don't know nothing about none of this job, and they want to hear something,
familiar. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I've definitely had those gigs. I'm never going to be the DJ to down upon a DJ who takes those kind of gigs, and that's the kind of DJ they are, because that's just the kind of DJ you are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And listen, you can be all kinds of DJs. Now, when I was doing corporate parties or something like that, I was doing underground at night. On different nights. So, so maybe Saturday during the day, I'm doing a corporate party. I'm playing stuff I really don't like.
It's just really deciding on what kind of DJ you want to be. And a lot of people don't realize that they are those different kind of levels. But again, that's what we talk about, learning the business part of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you do have to make this decision. Again, it was a heart-to-heart that I had with somebody that told me, was like, okay, because honestly, Duane, if you just sat around here talking about house and just wanted to be a house DJ, you ain't gonna make no money. If you just looking for
say that again. Say that again.
You just looking to DJ and on the house community, you know, you really ain't gonna make no money.
20 seconds here. We got a couple of venues that you were at. Talk about what kind of DJ you were. Reactor, go.
Well, the Reactor, I wasn't a DJ. I was promotion. I was all other aspects. I was consultant for DJs.
Urban.
Again, like I said, quite a few DJs that were actually playing out of my crates.
Yeah.
So that was my role. That was my role there.
Urban Sound Gallery.
Again, that was my first time on tables in the public, and that was more of me, like I said, being more like, at that time I was really heavy into the acid jazz movement, everything that was going on overseas in the UK and Japan, and I was playing that kind of music.
Funky Buddha.
Lots of
Funky Buddha.
Down tempo, lots of acid jazz, lots of jazz funk, lots of Mazelle Brothers kind of things. My tempo never got to be more than maybe 112 beats per minute. Yeah.
Chicago Summer Dance.
Oh man, that was crazy, because Chicago Summer Dance. So you know, I was floored when they told me that I had last year, that period, that I had the most attended Chicago Summer Dance.
Oh.
But when I went back and did my own research, I was like, this cannot be, because I was there when Frankie Knuckles was there, and Frankie Knuckles had it to the rafters. He had it, and it was. I had the most attended summer dance since the Frankie Knuckles one.
That's amazing.
So the most attended one in 15 years. It was a lot of fun. I had some hecklers, because I had those people who wanted straight up Chicago commercial house.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't do that.
What is commercial house?
They really wanted to. They wanted Dindada. They wanted something chippy, something BMX-ish, if you will.
BMX-ish.
Which all has its presence. You know what I'm saying?
I've not heard that term used before, but I like it. Commercial house, mainstream commercial house. Yeah, I like that.
You know, it has its presence, but that's not what I do.
Right.
And even though I do play its house, I do play certain songs. If you stay for the ride long enough when I play, you're going to hear something. You're gonna. There's something in my set you're gonna be able to grab onto.
That's good.
I love to do that. I'm not the kind of DJ that just sits up there in my own world. I zone in on people. I love there's certain people that come to support me.
Yeah.
They're
play for them.
They're my muse, because I know if I get them energy, there's people that spark energy in the room. I like energy in the room.
That's right.
You know, so I'm never going to.
It's about the journey.
Yeah. And if you just really stay with me, you're going to be able to grab onto something in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I saw a spot on here too. Funky Buddha Lounge was another thing that changed for me, because that's where my name Sound Rotation came from.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we you know what, we've already gone through 57 minutes. So we have just a few minutes left officially. I don't think we'll get cut off, but Kevin, please.
I gotta just ask this one question. ASAP, the 95th Street.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question.
Oh.
I know. Go ahead, but I want to hear all about it, because I saw that on television. I'm like, that's Duane Powell. Tell us about that.
Yes, please.
So Theaster Gates convinced the city to be able to do an installation, because he had did some art installation for them when they did the redesigning of the train station. And Theaster is all about restorative things and putting things back into a neighborhood that was recycling and giving things back to the area, the things that came from, right? And he convinced them to open up this space, to partner up, to open up this space to have music going as an art installation.
Mm-hmm.
And they built out this studio with the hopes for it to be a DJ studio, a DJ booth, a radio studio, and have the music piped throughout, because the music is piped throughout the whole entire 95th station, both sides of the street, and the platform. And it just ends up being a feel good thing. People come through the station and this music just for if nothing else, for 5 minutes, just make their day.
Yeah, you don't make anybody miss their train, right?
I have actually
I
had
would
some
imagine
people that was like, damn it, you made me miss my bus.
Yeah.
Because there's been these spontaneous parties. Been spontaneous where a group of people come through and they just, first of all, there was a few CTA workers that worked on Fridays that were quote unquote house heads. And they changed.
That's great.
Yeah, and it changed like and I mean, this one woman had to be near 60. And I had to play the percolator for her, and I had to play stuff like that.
You got to play some commercial music.
But I will play that percolator, and she will percolate. You hear me?
That's a commercial song, but you got to love it.
Yeah, but she will percolate, and she will go down there, damn near in a split,
I love it.
in her CTA uniform.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and so it was 360 for me because 95th Street was ground zero when I was putting up posters for parties.
Yeah,
me too.
That's
been ground zero for a long time. It was ground zero when we were putting up posters for parties in 1980.
And what I'm saying, in the 80s when I was putting
up Ryan, Stony Island, and Jeffrey.
Yeah, when I was putting up posters in the 80s, 95th was ground zero.
Oh yeah.
So to be back at ground zero, bringing house music to 95th was very like
full circle.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah. I had to pass through. I lived in Morgan Park, but I went to Lindblom, so I had to go through 95th Street pretty much every day, unless I took the Halsted bus all the way down.
Yeah,
there.
And so every day too, because that was the portal for us that lived in the hundreds. I lived in the hundreds. So when we went to any party, when and unfortunately, and not so much unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, because it was very fortunate for me that none of my crew was people from my area, per se. Yeah. So our meetup spot had to be 95th, right?
Right.
For me to go to various, and we would be going all the way to the parties, to Rick Lenore and them parties at Rest Hall on the West Side.
I have a cat fight going.
I remember getting chased coming from a party at Rest Hall on the West Side. Me and Glenn Underground and some other people.
Rick's tuned in, by the way.
Huh?
Rick Lenore's tuned in, by the way.
Oh, what up, Rick? Yeah, Rick was my boy. Rick. So another part of the thing that people never knew is that like Rick Lenore, when him and Larry Thompson had Music Box Records, they had a lot of records that I sang scratch vocals on.
Yeah.
Ron Carroll as well, Braxton Holmes as well. I did a lot of scratch vocals in the mid 90s.
Yeah. The Mirage Entertainment crew.
Yep.
And Wayne Bell joined forces with those guys.
John Redmond was my best friend.
Oh, wow.
John Redmond used to also work at the Reactor.
Yes.
So every session that John was on, I was on somewhere in the background.
You're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah. I've worn a lot of hats.
And speaking of hats, that was one of my questions. So what is so iconic about whenever I see you is your hats. Tell us a little bit about your hats before we have to shut this thing down, because I need to know. They're big.
Yeah. I like hats. I've always just been into fashion. I was into style, and people always thought I was avant-garde. Again, I was the weird kid. You know what I'm saying? I was definitely the laughed at, the oddball, the whatever. But I've always liked avant-garde style. I was very into, I don't know if you remember the Blitz Kids from the early '80s. So the Blitz Kids was a crew in England that consisted of Boy George and all these kids that came. There was a design school that was next to the Blitz nightclub, and they were crew. So Boy George was a part of it. John Galliano, Sade was a part of it. Corinne Drury from Swing Out Sister.
Yes.
There was a very good. So all of those groups, like Adam and all of them were the Blitz Kids. And a lot of my crew here, I used to hang with a crew called G2000 in the 80s. We were these really avant-garde kids, so my style has always kind of reflected that. And I just really got more and more into. I like good stuff with my hats. I get them from wherever. There's a designer from Hyde Park who now lives in New York. His name is Rodney Patterson. Quite a few. You know Rodney?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rodney is my boy. That I was about to say, are you wearing Essential? Because
Yes.
that's Rodney
Yes.
Patterson's brand.
We're wearing a lot
Big
of
shout out to Rodney Patterson.
Yeah.
And Rodney used to be like this.
So you know a lot of those hats that you see Billy Porter in now, that's Rodney.
I know. Rodney is making his mark.
Yeah, so Billy and I have the same hat designer, but then also there's another guy by the name of Brian Forbes.
Okay.
Stuff I'm wearing, and then just wherever I can. Like I used to go to the Belmont Surplus store a lot and get hats. Yeah.
You have a hat closet that we must see on the next time.
Oh God, I need better storage because some of them are too tall for hat boxes.
So you put them in storage.
Yeah, some of them are too tall for hat boxes. So yeah.
Got to take this next time you come on the show.
Yes. Well, thank you. I really, that's the wrong banner. Sorry about that. I really appreciate you sharing that because I looked at the hats. I was like, I wonder if he knows Rodney. Like, that looks like Rodney's style. So that's cool.
Yeah, in fact, that cover of the Reader, that was Rodney. That was Rodney's.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's my boy.
And we would go back and forth. I would tell him that because some of the hats he didn't design, some of them I told him what I wanted and he made it.
Custom.
Yeah.
I have a Rodney Patterson hat too. I might have to put it on before we get out of here.
Yeah.
So what I do want to ask you this question. I know Mecca's got some final questions for you, but you have done a lot. You've named just us. I think we probably scratched the surface here, tip of the iceberg. Are you doing what you want to do? Are you doing what you want to do now? And what would you do more of or less of?
Yeah, I'm amazed at this journey because there was a time I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I loved music, but I knew I didn't make music. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what do you do with this? Like, what is your talent? I didn't look at curating as a talent. I didn't look at history as a talent. I didn't look at any of it that way. You know what I'm saying? I definitely want to have, my brand my series that I do called the Review Mirror Sessions, which is a music history session that I've been doing with the Arts and Public Life. I want to expound on that and do a lot more of that. I think it's very important for us. Chicago is still this very untapped market in terms of all the history here. We still have not documented and told and talked about how many things have happened and things happen throughout this history and throughout Chicago. That's why I'm a part of the Chicago Black Social Culture Map, because people don't realize how much they don't know about what took place in Chicago, because we keep talking about these same few places. We keep talking about Bronzeville only. We keep talking about the warehouse and the music box only. You know what I mean? And there's so much history that happened all over this city, that played role in our city being, and we don't even know how much of a tastemaker city we were. We don't realize that, all the other cities in terms of skyscrapers and everything got their cues from us. That happened after the Great Chicago Fire. The reason why they call Chicago the second city was not because we're second to New York. It's because the first city burned down during the fire and they had to rebuild a new one. And them realizing that they needed to build up instead of outward is where we get the skyscrapers and architecture from. And then New York and all of them got their inspiration from us.
Teach it. This is the important history.
Yeah, it's so much. People don't realize everything that happened. That and how much we influenced the world and how much we, everybody got their cues from us. So it's a lot of more work to be done to talk about the rich history and all these people that contributed to it. I want, I was talking earlier that still is not enough to know about, women's history in terms of music culture, in terms, especially in house. They still don't know, what I'm saying, how many women play roles in house culture, Yeah, it's so much. We go on and on.
We try to do a lot of that uncovering of that information here on the Vintage House Show. We absolutely appreciate that you started to surface today. We, in fact, had a couple of folks that are involved with the Chosen Few Festival, as an example, the women involved with the business of producing that festival
Mhm.
on, and it was an incredible show. You know, our producer, our lead host here, co-host, who just got her Rodney, rocking it.
I had to put on my Rodney hat.
Nice. Wish Rodney was tuned
Got
in.
a lot of dog hair on it, but I'll take care of that later.
He'll get to see it on demand. We'll have to find him.
Yes, that's right.
And so I wanted to just ask this question that you just alluded to in your response to Lori's very introspective question, and you really answered it already. You know, why not also make music?
I don't have the attention span. I have been in the room with producers and just them trying to choose the right snare. It's annoying. You know, and I commend producers who can really do it, because that is a lot of man hours.
Yes, it
That
is.
is a lot of man hours. That is a lot of really trying to find your sound, really trying to hone in on this. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. It is really a lot, and I really commend those who do it and doing it well. Like, I'm thinking about my brother Vic Lavender right now. He is like a beast in the studio right now. He has been churning out some amazing stuff, and it's a lot of work. You know, I'm definitely a person that once you get it, I can consult. You know, I used to consult these days anyway. I definitely consult you, like, how is it sounding to you? We can do that, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I feel you. You got to have a lot of patience to sit in the studio.
yeah, and I have a lot of patience, but that's just
you got a different kind of patience for a studio.
yeah, that's a whole.
I've sat in there with Craig a few times, and I'm like, oh my God, how long is this going to take?
Because I wouldn't want to be some people just do remixes. If I was to do it, I wouldn't want to just be doing remixes. I would want to be able to create original music. I'm all about original stuff.
Yeah.
I really hate that, you know, when people get caught up into rehashing and re and covering. I would want to do original music, and that's just yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, so, no, appreciate that honesty and insight from you.
Yeah, so I just will work more on this side and be the one that hope to be around to be able to tell you guys stories. We need the griots. We don't have enough griots, you know.
No, I asked Andre Hatchett that same question. He's like, look, he said, y'all make the music, I'll play the music. I was like, okay. You know what you want, and I love that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up, but you know, Mega, I'll let you get the last word in because he always has such great philosophical questions. I don't know if you have one for Duane today.
I absolutely am inspired to ask this of Duane. If you were to be painted by an famous artist of the past, who would you have to paint your portrait?
To paint my portrait?
Yes.
Oh God. I mean, I love Charles White.
Okay.
I love Kahinde. I love I don't know.
I mean, those are two incredible artists.
Yeah. You know, I'm also just I'm firstly because I'm thinking about photographers more than anything. You know,
it's art.
I love photography. I love photography. I love Gordon Parks to death.
Yes.
You know,
the less suggested Basquiat.
Well, yeah,
I don't know what kind of painting that would be.
Yeah.
Well, abstract.
That would be interesting.
So we thank you for all of the insights, the time to be able to ask, you know, some of these questions in which you know, provided bare bones, raw insights into who Duane Powell is. We certainly feel who you are as you're playing. And so to be able to sit down and talk to you this evening was, you know, an incredible honor, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys for having me. I hope I didn't like babble.
You were wonderful. As a matter of fact, I always say this is the first time around, so you will be back because you got a lot of love, and now people chiming in. It's too late. We've been on for an hour and 14 minutes, so you got to watch from beginning to end, so we can get you again, and you can ask more questions later. But thank you, Duane. We appreciate you. We love you. We will support you through this pandemic. And we know you're a full-time artist, so when you spend and put your Cash App up there, you let people give you some love, and we all got to get through this time together, okay?
Okay.
Definitely will be keeping an ear out.
That's right. Take care, everybody. You guys have a great night. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next week with Reggie Corner. That's going to be interesting.
Lord. Here comes trouble.
and Vic Lavender shortly after that. So
that's right. That's right. All right. Wish us luck. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Bye. Peace.